Well, don't know exactly what our main point is going to be today, but I do know that we'll have at least a little semi-funny part of when the preacher goes long, right? Um, Acts chapter 20, verse 7. Now on the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread. Hey, I'll just pause right there. We made it far enough, right? That's enough for today. No, it's not a ton that we just covered, but it's important stuff. And good morning to everyone, Susan and Dad and Arla. So if you guys want to go to text, it's just worth noting Acts chapter 20, verse 7 is one of multiple. This is not the only one. But we've got some friends, who still think that Saturday is the day to worship, following the Sabbath keeping. And, it's just not New Testament Christianity. It's not what we see. That the Sabbath was a foreshadowing of the rest we find in Christ. And we see that spoken of in the New Testament. But that said, you'll note in verse 7, now on the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread. And we find that there is a tendency that, hi, Mom, from Joy. I told Judah not to type. He's getting on as me. All right. So, first day of the week, we see that as a trend, that the first day of the week is when the disciples get together. And so we still to this day worship on Sunday. Now, it says that Paul, ready to depart the next day, spoke to them and continued his message until midnight. Now, that's biblical. So Sunday nights, we're going to start pulling the long haul because it's more biblical for me to preach for hours on end. You see? You didn't know how much of a blessing of a biblical pastor you guys had. And there were many lamps in the upper room where they gathered together. And in the window, a certain young man named Eutychus, who was sinking into a deep sleep. He was overcome by sleep, and as Paul continued speaking, he fell down from the third story and was taken up dead. When Paul went down, fell on him and embraced him and said, do not trouble yourselves, for his life is in him. Now when he had come up, he had broken bread and eaten and talked a long while. Until daybreak he departed, and they brought the young man alive, and they were not a little comforted. Now, you know what? I'm gonna play on this a little bit here because he preaches until midnight, and you'll notice that they get together and they start this meeting, and I mean they make it sound like this gathering started at a normal time, and Paul just kept going all the way until midnight. And one obviously very unspiritual person fell asleep during the sermon. Now, I'm kidding, but you'll see that he came back and then he continues talking a long while. He talked until someone died, and then he kept on talking. I like this Paul guy. He's a winner. But here's the catch, is what you find is that this teaching went on for a very long time. You could consider it a long church service. I know some people who've commented, because our church service is an hour and a half and upwards to an hour and 45 minutes these days. We used to be a solid hour and 45, even up to 2 hours. And we tried to get more efficient with our time to get us back to hour and 45. But I know some people, they're like, oh, church, 1 hour, in, out. And I'm just thinking, like, let's check our hearts. Like, if people really feel like church should be an hour in and out, like, they must not like being there. Is there any other reason that you'd want, fellowship, worship, the word to be cut short? Now, Charles Spurgeon, whom I highly respect, he advised pastors, his preachers, that he was teaching at a pastor's school where he would raise up young ministers. He advised them to keep his sermons to no longer than 45 minutes. And he said it's because that it's true that life does happen, that there are mothers with young babies who have a schedule to be on. And there's things, that we don't need to go on and on and on. That's why the Sunday morning service, I do try and keep it to a certain time. I'm not really worried about how long a church service is. But the real question is where our hearts are at. I once heard John Corson make the reference to sermonettes for Christianettes. There's a lot of churches, and I don't want to judge them. That's not the point of this. But the norm is a 15-minute message. And to me, it's like, man, I can barely get an introduction out in 15 minutes. These sermons, this is 15 minutes often, right? We go 10 to 15 minutes. And this is just me just open up the Bible and saying a few logical conclusions. But where are our hearts at? Paul preaches to midnight. You want to know why he preached to midnight? Because the people wanted him to preach till midnight. Because the people in Troas were hungry for the word of God. They were hungry and they were longing for it. You see, we don't necessarily have to preach for hours on end, but I believe a sign of spiritual health is hunger. If you aren't hungering for the word, you're probably not healthy. It's a natural thing for a person who's active in their life to get hungry from being active. If you're active in your faith, you'll find yourself hungry. When we get sick, a sign of illness is losing our appetite. So too, the Christian, if we lose our appetite for the word, for fellowship, for worship, there is even prayer, right? When we lose our appetite, it's because there is something wrong with us. And you know what, guys? You're a sinner. I'm a sinner. You've got a body of flesh. I've got a body of flesh. We have a world that throws temptation and satisfactions and entertainment and amusement at us. And we have a devil and his whole huge cohort of demons that are watching and trying to throw these things at us. They know how our flesh works. They know how the world works. And they just try and make all the things happen at the right time. Everything is against us to want to pray, to want to be in the Word, to want to be in fellowship, to want to truly worship our holy and amazing and gracious God. Everything's against us, but that doesn't change the fact. The fact that it's difficult doesn't change the fact that our hunger for the Word, our hunger for prayer, our hunger for fellowship is a litmus test. It is a test of our spiritual health. When you're on fire, you're excited for these things. Do you remember? Was there a season for you? I see some of the young people on here. When we used to get together on Thursday nights and staying up till midnight was no thing, just like here at Troas, because people were hungry. We're hungry for the word. I'm hungry for fellowship. We'll stay up all night long and talk, longing for Sunday morning to get here so we can go to church. And if we feel like, I don't feel like going today. I just started reading Life Together by Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And here is him speaking of Nazi Germany. True churches are being shut down. And he begins to pastor underground churches in Nazi Germany. And he speaks of this man in prison. He's in prison for his faith. He's hanged on my birthday, right? And he speaks about how when this happens, just one meeting, he said, just one opportunity to see another believer and to pray with them, how it ministered to him and brought so much joy. And we can take it so for granted that I have the freedom and opportunity to gather with other believers so freely that I could brush it off like it's something like, meh, don't need it today. I'm doing okay. Again, it's a way that we judge our hearts, just where we're at, that truly, if I am exercising my faith and I'm not suffering from sickness and illness, then a regular hunger to be fulfilled and filled back up again is only natural. And so, Sometimes we do our diet and exercise out of due diligence because we know it brings health. But once again, like these people at Troas, they were hungry. So hungry that young Eutychus fell asleep. And I'll tell you this, I've been tired, and we all get tired. There's nothing wrong in it. Truthfully, there's nothing wrong with falling asleep during a sermon. I have fallen asleep to amazing preachers, preaching amazing messages just because I was tired. But once again, I commend people. It's funny because we might tease someone who regularly falls asleep. You all know who I'm thinking of. But I've also pointed out, you made the effort to show up. I'd rather have someone make the effort to come to church when they're tired and they're sore and they can barely keep their eyes open, but they're doing it because they know this is where I need to be. I need to be in fellowship. I need to be getting the word fed to me. I need to be feeding on it myself. And so, are you hungry? And if you're not hungry, ask God. Do you want to know what ruins an appetite? Junk food. And maybe that's another part of this whole message, guys, is that you fill yourself with garbage, you fill yourself with junk, and you lose your appetite for the good stuff. I posted this morning, not thinking it'd be related, but amusement, right? A, the alpha privative, means the negation of. Muse is to inspire thought, creativity. Amusement are things that take away, they negate our inspiration and our creativity and our deep thought and our growth. And the more we fit amusement into our life, the less hunger we're going to have for healthy foods. And so again, what are you filling your day with? What are you filling your life with? Are you hungry for the word? Are you hungry for fellowship? Are you hungry to get before the throne of God and go talk with him? If not, reflect. Lord, am I taking in junk food? Lord, do I just have a hard heart and I need you to soften it? Whatever it may be, seek the Lord and he'll give you that answer. You guys have a great day. I pray that you are hungering for the Lord our God. Take care.